Hello, everyone. Welcome to Concordia University's Forest Space. Thank you for joining us for today's event, Engineering Your Journey to Leadership. It's a conversation with Keppel Bharath with Tallie Segel. And just to help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube live from Forest Space, and we are located here on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. Here at Forest Space, we work with our university community to help mobilize knowledge by co-creating daily activities that examine research questions, projects, things happening across the university. We're also running today's event as a live stream Zoom meeting. So those of you joining us on Zoom, we'd love your comments and your questions. Just pop those into the chat. We can read those out a little later. Those of you here in the space, if you'd like to participate, we'll bring a microphone over to you. Okay. With that, it's very much my pleasure to hand it over to the project lead at the Black Perspectives Office, but also PhD candidate in Concordia's Department of Sociology and Anthropology, Tallie Segel. Tallie, it's great to have you.
Thank you, and I want to thank Bertie and Doug and Isa here at Fourth Space for all of your help and support, and I'm really, really happy and grateful to be here today with Keppel Bharath, who is a retired senior fellow at Pratt Whitney Canada. And I'm excited to talk today about his personal journey from entry level to leadership at Pratt Whitney, and all the insights that he's gained along the way. With a distinguished career in aerospace engineering, Keppel brings decades of technical excellence, strategic leadership, and lived experience to navigating complex professional environments. And our conversation today started as a conversation between some faculty in Gina Cody and our director at the Black Perspectives Office, James Roach, looking for opportunities and ways to support Black engineering students and underrepresented and other racialized engineering students, looking for ways to support their trajectories as students, looking for mentors, looking for internships, looking for opportunities, and sort of navigating barriers along the way. And so that's something that we're here to talk about today, both Keppel's kind of trajectory into a very, very interesting career in aerospace engineering, but also like between the two of us, our views on kind of what is helpful to think about in terms of planning your trajectory into leadership from early career or mid-career, or even just like before you're really sort of picking your career. So how can you be thinking about your pathway to leadership? So again, super grateful to be here today, and I'm gonna just start with a question for you, Keppel, to get to know you. Start us off a little bit. Tell us about who you are, not just your career, but your story. Where did you grow up? And yeah, how did that shape your worldview?
Well, thank you for having me here at Fourth Space. I have a very distinguished profile, which you will see as we go through my little presentation. I was born in Trinidad, which is very close to Venezuela, in 1956. And we were not, let's just say, we were not rich. We lived very close to the ocean, and we had to be very careful because as kids we couldn't swim. And if you did go to the ocean, your mother and father would find out very quickly, even though we did not have the web. Before you got back home, news would go back home that you were swimming in the ocean, and then there was another discussion. But tragedy struck when I was 6 years old. My father died, and in the West Indies, when your parents, we rented a home, and if one of your parents died, the kids are immediately distributed to other people. So I was taken and sent to live with my aunt Phyllis and Uncle Frankie in Point Fortin, which is a small village far away. And then I was moved to live with my Uncle James and Auntie Rose. They had a little farm, so they had a little more room for me. I didn't go to school. My father died in August. I didn't go to school for that whole summer. but you couldn't just sit around the house doing nothing. So I became the cashier. They had a very small dépanneur. They grew stuff, which they sold, and that's how they lived. So I became the cashier. Even though I was only 6 years old, I can add, I can divide. I can remember who came because some of the people couldn't write their names. So when you asked them the name, they couldn't spell it to you. So I was the recorder of who came, who bought what, who paid, who did not pay, and I would make a note of it. And I started doing something really interesting. I looked at my aunt throwing away a lot of tomatoes that were rotten after 5 days. Now, if you look at a tomato, if you pick it with the stem, there are 5 leaves. And what I did was, on day 1, I would remove 1 leaf. So I knew if the tomato had only 4 leaves, it was 1 day old. After 4 days, there was only 1 leaf left. So then I developed a scheme where if you were to come and buy 2 tomatoes, I'll give you 1 free of charge. And that really built the customer satisfaction base. So people came back. Yeah. And my aunt really liked it because then she got rid of all the tomatoes, didn't have to throw them away. You know, so that's my background of how we started to develop as people. Through my aunt and my uncle.
Yes, that's wonderful. Clever, very clever 6-year-old with the tomatoes. I love it. Will you tell us a bit about some values or principles that have guided you through your life personally and professionally? And I feel like the tomato story is a great start to understanding some of what shaped you.
The world, well, when my mother got settled, we all moved back into a home that we could afford. And it was not a very big home. So the kitchen table was the center of activity, whether it be for cooking, eating, doing homework, and things like this. And we didn't have computers or anything like that. We had 1 lamp in the middle of the table. So we did our homework, everybody around that table. I was the youngest. I finished first. So what I started doing was asking my brother and my sisters who were in high school about what they were doing. So at 7, 8 years old, I was doing arithmetic progressions, geometric progressions. I understood ratios. My sister showed me how to use log tables because we didn't have computers, we didn't have calculators. So all of the mathematics that we did with logarithmic tables. So I was able to do that. And when I was writing this, I reflected on that time. And what it did, it made me realize that the limitations that we see are self-imposed. What I discovered that if I ask people for something, they will tell you, you learn it, and then they are so happy that you learned something from them, they will tell you even more. That came back to my benefit 15, 20 years further down the road. So I was able to do a lot of development. So you have to take an interest in other people, what they can show you, learn from them, and be respectful of other people, and it really works.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Yes, curiosity, I think, is a key to leadership and to a really rewarding and exciting kind of trajectory, whatever the trajectory might be. I think this is such an important question in lots of different kinds of the work that I do in lots of different settings. But like, what does success mean to you when you first started your career, and has that changed over time?
Well, let's take a step back. Before I started my career, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. All right. I was a lazy kid. I really was. I only was interested to play, and I found out that I could remember anything. So I didn't have to write anything down. My teachers told me, you are lazy and we will not let you fail. Now, you must understand, in Trinidad at that time, we're talking about the early 60s, they would have sticks. I discovered very early, before my career, that if you answered questions in class, you got moved to the back of the class. Why? Because the teachers were lazy. And it'll be easier for them to sit at their station where they were teaching from, reach over and smack you upside the head. But if you were sitting at the back, you were the smarter one, so you didn't need smacking. So they kept the people who were not so brilliant in the front, and they drove us to do what we had to do. So I learned this very quickly: impress the people and do what they say. Now, I always thought about things differently. I am very spiritual in my upbringing, and when I would think of things, the answers would come. Even though sometimes I would be sleeping, I would get an answer in the night. So I have a career, but I always knew that there was some spiritual, stuff that came into my head as you slept. So that helped me form my career.
Amazing. Yeah. I feel like lazy we'll use different words today, but really bright and good memory, gets you like sort of bored in class, right?
I was bored.
Right. That's the thing. Yeah. Okay. So before we get too much into like leadership and career advice, what's something that people might not expect from someone with your background in engineering? Something.
Well, as I mentioned, spirituality. I always thought there is a higher order. I don't care what religion you are, or if you have no religion, there is something bigger out there, and that interests me. So when I retired, I decided to. Well, first of all, I was bored. So I went back to school to study to get my MDiv in theology. And I did that because my wife's a medical doctor, and she was still working. So when I was at home, I had all of this time to read all of these books on things that I would never have the time to do when I was working. So I finished 5 years of 7, so I'm almost there. And unfortunately, my wife retired. So we have a decision to make now. Do we continue or not continue? But I am deeply involved with the aerospace community. In fact, when we were discussing it over the phone, and you highlighted the fact that you were from Albuquerque, New Mexico, I just wanted to let you know that I know Albuquerque very well.
Yeah.
Between 2002 and 2008, I spent every other weekend in Albuquerque. Why? Because we were designing a very light jet with Eclipse Aviation. You probably know of them.
Yep.
They're very big in Albuquerque. So I used to go in to Albuquerque every weekend, other weekends, so every fortnight. And I would fly in on the Monday morning, right, and stay till Sunday.
Okay.
Right, because it would be easier for me to get that. So I just wanted to give you something to remind you of Albuquerque, New Mexico, right? This is a collector's item. It is the aircraft that we designed. The bag is yours also.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
We hold it up to the camera so they can see it.
Yeah, so this is an aerospace company that is based in my hometown. This is very sweet. Thank you so much. This is cool. My dad is coming from Albuquerque on Saturday, and I asked him to bring your favorite Albuquerque barbecue sauce. So
that's right.
We'll have an Albuquerque trade.
No, it comes with a caveat.
Yeah.
Comes with a caveat. As soon as we landed in Albuquerque, right, we work until 5 o'clock in the afternoon Mountain Time, and we would have Rudy's at night.
Yeah, that's the barbecue.
So the deal is, if you accept that,
yes,
when you come back from Albuquerque next time, I expect a very small bottle of Rudy's barbecue sauce.
Rudy's coming back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure we deal. There's always a quid pro quo.
Yes. Okay. No, I always love it when folks know my hometown. Yeah.
I'm somewhat enthralled. A young lady from Albuquerque what the hell are you doing in Montreal?
That's a good question.
You know, why did you leave Albuquerque to
Yeah.
come here to study to finish your PhD?
Yeah, yeah.
So educate me.
Yeah. So I, grew up in New Mexico. It's a southwestern part of the United States. I love it there. I love the desert. I love the sunshine. But I have left many times to pursue education. So I did my undergraduate degree in Colorado. Didn't go too far. And then I worked for about 10 years before deciding I was like very curious to do I was working in education, in environmental education, and I wanted to sort of think more deeply about what we were teaching and the impact we were having. And so I left Albuquerque again to Flagstaff, Arizona to do a master's. And before I did that, I had gone to a conference in Mexico City for botanical garden education, so very niche, very, very specific. But I met this professor from Concordia at that conference. We were at this very cool place called Xochimilco, which are these like floating islands in the center of Mexico City. And we were like standing over a ditch looking at axolotls, which are amphibians that have gills, but they look like salamanders that have gills. And Katya Neves, who is my supervisor now, she was like in this group of people who were standing looking at these like very strange looking creatures. And so that's where I met her. She was doing research on educators working in botanical gardens. I was like, I'm an educator in a botanical garden. I think this is really cool. People want to research our work. And then I went and did my master's, and I had these questions that came up about knowledge politics, whose knowledge counts and in what ways in our work in environmental education or in botanical gardens and other types of science centers. And I ran into Katya again at another conference and was like, could I be your PhD student maybe?
Okay.
And so she said, sure. So I applied. Concordia is the only place I applied. I don't know that PhD was my actual trajectory, but it was like, I want to work with this person. I think her questions are very interesting. So when I make up my mind, kind of do like whatever it is that it takes to like get to the place. It takes a long time for me to make up my mind about something, but once I'm there, I'm there. So I came and started in 2017. So it's been a long journey to a lot of other jobs while doing the PhD. But it was really out of curiosity to pursue questions about, whose knowledge counts when we're teaching in science. And so, and especially in the context of learning about the natural world. So that's how I ended up here. I am still here.
Should I ask you for some advice, or maybe give advice? How do you go from undergrad to your master's to your PhD for some of the students who are here? Can you give them any guidance?
I think if you know what you're interested in studying when you finish your bachelor's degree, you should totally pursue a master's degree. If you know that's the work, that's like a course you want to take, you're still curious, you're excited by academic life. If you want a break, do not be afraid to take a break from school. Find a job. Most jobs will get you experience that you are going to need to kind of come back into an academic setting, either a couple of years or 10 years later. You shouldn't be worried about falling out of academic habit if that's a question. It gets different once you like go to PhD, but I think you should not be afraid to go after a master's if that's what you want to do when you're finished with your bachelor's, and you also should not feel like you have to pursue it. There's so many valuable skills to learn in the workforce that and so many ideas that come up that you get to think with when you go back to school if you decide to go back and pursue a higher another degree.
But the step between master's and PhD is, to me, it's a harder step.
It's a harder, I think it's a bigger commitment. Yeah, because you are saying, okay, this is work I'm gonna dedicate, at least 4 years to intensively, if not longer, because you're doing your research, you're doing your coursework, you're doing your lab work, or working on different kinds of projects at the university, but you might also be working a job to make money, to like pay your rent, to take care of your family. So it's a much bigger commitment, and I think you also want to know more about the discipline or the division that you're going into. So, I'll say for myself, I went into sociology, anthropology department, didn't know a lot about sociology or anthropology, and so it was like, oh, maybe I would have approached this differently. So that first year was challenging because it was a totally different, it was a different language, basically, that I had to learn in order to kind of understand, all right, we're getting the ideas this way, and now I get them, and I can think and use them and write about them and look at the world through these questions. So it's a bigger commitment. It's totally worth it, even if it takes a long time, even if it's not lucrative. But it can pay off down the line.
Never give up. Never give up.
Don't give up. Yeah. And I think it can be challenging too to find people who support you. So when you realize someone is there around you that's like kind of paying attention to you and like actually interested in you, it is in terms of finding someone to help you stay successful in graduate school. I think you pay attention to those people and maybe don't ask too much from them, but also like recognize that interest in you. Like you need that from more than one person, but hopefully at least one person is like, okay, I see you, I want to know how you're doing, I care about you. It doesn't have to be a professor, it can be anywhere, but like you need those people. So
excellent.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I took that.
No. Back to you.
To me,
Questions back over to you. Well, maybe walk us through your path a little bit. I gave you my...
Well, as I mentioned, I came to Canada in 1973. I was 16. I applied to Carleton because my mother had a job in Ottawa, and I was denied. Why was I denied for engineering in Carleton? I did not have calculus because we never studied calculus in Trinidad. So they said, go to high school and finish the pre-requirements to get entry into Carleton. So I went to Bell High School in Bell's Corners in Ottawa, and I met the math teacher. And I told her, this is the letter I got. I had no calculus, and I would like to finish so that I can apply again in 1974. This was 1973. So next year. She says, well, calculus is a 4-year program. So I says, okay, we can do it. 52 weeks minus 8 is 44. Every 11 weeks, we'll just do 1. She says, it was really tough. I said, well, it's okay. I can read. I can learn. So I actually went through the calculus program, grade 10, 11, 12, 13. You don't have grade 13 here in Quebec, I don't think so. You have CEGEP. But we did 4 years calculus, and then I applied in January, and I stated that my marks will come when I get them in June. So my application to Carleton was on hold, pending, until I got my final, my work. But I wanted to go to engineering school because I saw a Pratt Whitney Canada engine at the Ottawa Aerospace Museum. It only weighed 300 pounds, but it delivered 600 horsepower, which is a lot, And I thought, how did they make this incredible machine? So we did not have the web as you have today. So I went to the library and I did some research on Pratt Whitney Canada. You had to do everything by the books, the old way. And I found that it was very interesting. And I told my mom, I'm going to be an aerospace engineer and go to work for Pratt Whitney Canada. So that's how I started my plot to get into.
You made up your mind.
Made up my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, made up my mind.
Yeah.
I found that my heart and my mind was aligned with the books that I had in my book bag. Now, I'm going to tell you this all the time because it's an alignment of your spirit. If your heart and your head are aligned with the resources that you have, there is no stopping you on whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one of the takeaways that you guys are going to have for this little session.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I went and I graduated. I first got a job at Chrysler. So I went down to Windsor, Ontario, but it wasn't aerospace engineering. It was essentially just taking orders from Detroit.
Okay.
And I thought that was not interesting at all.
Yeah.
So I lasted 8 months. I applied to Pratt Whitney, and the reference that I had was Dr. Sarah Vanamutu, who taught me thermodynamics at Carleton, put me into contact with the people who were hiring at Pratt Whitney. So I came to Pratt Whitney in 1979, January. The first couple of weeks was -40. And I thought, what have I done? But it's okay, it's okay. When I entered the company, I was junior engineer. I entered at the lowest possible level for engineering. But as you looked around the company, you saw all of these senior project engineers. They had 25 years of experience. They were 50 years old, 55 in some cases. And I thought to myself, that's what I want to be in 25 years. You know? So I started working. I got my hands on all of the specifications, the processes, the technical terms that they used to pack my book bag. I was then able to align my mind, my heart, and my book bag. And what happened was very interesting. Normally, to jump from the level that I entered to the next level, right? To get to senior project engineer, you had to go 5 levels. It normally takes 2 to 3 years. I was able to go, so that would be 15 years. I was able to go from the junior position to this project engineering, senior project engineering fellows, senior project engineering position in 8 years. So I cut the time in half. And my HR, my human resources people couldn't understand how I did this.
Or how you did calculus, 4 years of calculus in 1 year.
It's okay. No, if you're, as I come back, if your heart and your mind is aligned with your book bag, there's no stopping you.
Yeah.
There's no, and this goes to anywhere. Okay?
Amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll talk about your approach to mentorship later on, but can you tell us a little bit about your own early mentors? Was your thermodynamics professor one of those?
Yes, Sarah Vanamutu. And all through college, I had people who took interest to me because I would stay back and ask questions above and beyond what was being taught. I went back to some old traits which were not very good. I never took notes in class. For some people, this was bad because to me, if you read something and you understand it, why would you need to take notes of it? Because if you understand it, then you can explain it to someone else. And some of the professors recognized this, that, you know, I was a little bit above average intelligence, just a little bit, average +1. And when I went into Pratt Whitney, I found the same thing. You would go and you would approach people and you'd ask them questions that they are normally not asked. And they took an interest in that kind of thing. So they forced you to think about it. Now, they will never tell you the answer, but they would sort of kick you and push you towards the answer, but you had to figure it out. And to me, that was better, because I find that when you mentor someone, right, you should be able to lift them up. So if I'm mentoring you, I should be able to lift you up higher than I could lift myself. And hopefully, you will then pull me along. I am an avid cyclist, and I love riding in groups because you have one lead cyclist, and then the person who is just behind and the one behind that, you cut the drag by 30%. So you can go further and farther, and then occasionally you change to help that lead. So you sort of make a soup, you go behind the group, and then you continue riding. I view the same thing in mentorship. If I were to push you down and push me up, I only push myself up. But when you design aircraft engines, they push the aircraft forward, they lift the whole aircraft up, including the engines. So my payment to mentoring, the payment that I get when I mentor people, is I want to see them benefit and go higher than I could have ever gone. So even today, I still mentor 12 people within Pratt Whitney, outside Pratt Whitney, to push them higher and higher.
Yeah.
And I charge nothing, but they have to tell me when they become managers. I, of course, kick them off the list, and then I go to pick somebody else. But that's how we develop mentoring. Now, to be able to get a mentor going, I developed this beautiful tool. Now, if you can focus on this, Isa, por favor. This beautiful tool, what is it? It's a compass, right? Now, this compass is a very simple thing. When I was started my MBA, I was doing, oops, watch this. I would stand at the middle, and I would be able to look at any problem. If it was engineering, that's north. If it were in the service center, that's south. The engine center, that's east. And at the time I was in operations, so west is W, is operation, west. Standing in the middle, it allows you to focus on any issue that you have and tell if you're flying an aircraft and something burns or if it breaks, you can tell, was it improperly designed? Was it improperly assembled? Was it improperly made by the operations people? And was it improperly operated by the operator? So I use this as my model to gain insight. So when I'm mentoring people, I got them to think like this, right? To get them to open their sphere of influence. Now, what is the sphere of influence? It's a code. I'm not allowed to use the names because I didn't get the people's okay. But let's call my VP Gordon and my CEO Dr. J, just for those. And they would tell me, you extend your arms and you reach out as far as you can. And to grow, keep extending further and further and further and further, touching everyone and lifting them up.
The sphere of influence.
And it's, pardon?
The sphere of influence.
That's right, the sphere of influence. So it actually works very well. So I use this tool to get the people in my group to go further, go higher, and pull others along. Because that was the deal. If I mentor you, you have to pull someone else with you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
So that was mentoring.
So and then finding them, I mean, like what I keep hearing from you is the sense of curiosity, the going to people with like genuine interest in sort of learning more and learning beyond what you're kind of tasked with in early career at Pratt and Whitney, but also like as a kid in school, like I'm curious about this. And I think that is something that definitely drives, well, obviously created opportunities for you and kind of the eye line of people who have influence and who can kind of help you along. I found this the same, like to have genuine interest, have curiosity in the people that you're working with and the project that you're working on can really take you far. I wanted to just sort of ask a little bit about leadership and representation, because a big piece of, well, a lot of the work that we do at the Black Perspective Office is really both bringing forward the sort of multitudes and opportunities to kind of think with and understand Black perspectives across, the Concordia campus, across Montreal and Quebec, Canada, but also also to help support students who are underrepresented, both in the university and in the workforce. Yeah, sort of.
Tallie, I'll just get you to stop there. I think we're having a little problem with your microphone, so I'm going to
because
hand you
it moved.
this handheld.
It moved out of her.
No worries. We'll just give a little trade here.
Yeah, so we want to support students because as underrepresented folks in, STEM fields or whatnot, it can be challenging. And so we'd love to hear just a little bit about, as a professional in an industry where representation of people of color is limited, what kind of barriers did you face and how did you overcome them?
Well, unfortunately, this is a very tricky subject. Huh?
Yeah.
And I will address it because in class at Carleton, the class of 1974, there were only 3 people of color in 150. Now, that's the people that started. When we graduated, only 50 people graduated. The others sort of fell by the wayside, but the 3 of us graduated. When I came to Pratt Whitney, I discovered that Pratt Whitney, the human resources group, hires the best people for the job. When I was growing up, taking like 20 years back, we grew up in a society that had everything from the darkest dark to the whitest white and every color in between. We were taught you had to be number 1, right? You as an individual, you had to beat everybody else. Now, something that we did in college is that your name and your marks were displayed so that everybody saw what you came. I don't think we do that here in Canada because it's a sort of, you on public display. Yeah. I was not at the top of the class, I was in the middle. And we had some really brilliant people. When I went to Pratt Whitney, we were hired to form the development of the commuter market. The commuter market is an aircraft, small aircraft, that brings you from small towns to big airports. So they will bring you from St. Hubert to drop you at Dorval. And then if you want to go from Dorval to Los Angeles, you'll book a flight from YUL to LAX, and you take a big aircraft. That wasn't our intent. When they formed this team of 200 people, the development side of the team, there were 24 of us, 24 engineers. Unfortunately, we had 1 lady and 23 boys or men. And in that group, we had 7 different countries represented because Pratt & Whitney did not have this issue of, hire this one or that one. We hired the best. And I think that is what drove it. You were hired based on your technical capability and your ability to perform. And what we did is we drove each other to under-promise and over-deliver, which is something you hear if you do your MBA, that's what they teach you to do, under-promise and over-deliver. But we had to be technically competent to be able to get that done. So we started, and we actually, I think there was only 1 guy that was married. So we worked like dogs to get what was done. And some people south of us talk about FAFO, right? Technically, it means fooling around and finding out. We were encouraged to fool around. It's a different word they use, but it's okay. Experiment, a technical term they use, and I'll stay away from the technical term. Experiment and fail, right? We were encouraged to fail. Yeah. Why is that important? Because if you do not push the limits of your abilities and fail, you will not know what the breaking point is going to be. So we would push things right till failure, and then we'll take a step back. And to prove it, some of the vice presidents at Pratt & Whitney, VP of Engineering, I will call him Ed, just for, would tell you, you have to show me that you can turn on and then turn off that failure mode. Only then have you solved it. The CEO I mentioned, Dr. J would say, do it 7 times. Then you have proven to me that it's not a fluke. So this was the sort of training that we got from our leaders to be able to develop things. And that's what we did. We drove it. Now, you always had problems politically with other people who wanted to get ahead, but we drove technical excellence, competence, over-delivering, and under-promising. And that's how we got around it. There were barriers, but we jumped over it just by the sheer magnitude of our technical expertise.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Amazing. I have another question kind of in line in this vein, which is you clearly have a very analytical mind and a very good memory. And so this was like really excellent kind of advantage for especially your field, but and for how maybe it shapes how you show up to do your work. But did you ever feel like you needed to blunt aspects of your own rich culture to be perceived a fit at Pratt Whitney or in aerospace engineering more broadly?
Well, let's talk about any industry, right?
Yeah.
As I mentioned, when we were younger in school, we were told you had to be number 1, right? You had to be number 1. So on that chart, I was never ever at the top. I would be in the middle. I'll be in the middle. And that sort of bugged me. So you worked harder, you drove harder, and you developed this attitude, which I took with me through university, which was fine.
Yeah.
Because then your GPA was 3.8, which is okay. I wasn't the best, but I wasn't at the bottom of the pile. Then when I got into Pratt Whitney, I found out that worked really well when you are not a manager. But then, after 20 years of working in the trenches, they decided to promote me to become a manager. And I had to change. That training that I had when I was younger to drive and deliver and be number 1 had to change. So Dr. J, again, we just say this name at random, arranged for me to meet a psychologist. And she went through the way I thought about things and the way I drove things. And she showed me how it is felt by someone else. So sort of role playing. So how would you feel if I told you, why are you taking so long to do that? And you really don't know what you're doing. So we went through this, and it was a metamorphosis of my ability to then lead people. So only then, and we talking, the year was about 2001, 2002, was only then that I started to be able to recreate the same drive that I had in other people. So prior this transformation date, I would think to myself, how come you're so effing stupid you can't understand that? But then post, a technical term, this effing person.
Right.
But post this transformation, I would say, how can I help you to expedite this? And I would show them, and it really worked. Because then when they understand what they are doing, how to do it, and why it had to be done this way, and you gave them the book bag, I come back to the book bag, and you get their heart and mind aligned, they all took off. So this is something that I had to unlearn. But I applied it differently. Don't get me wrong, I still want to be number 1. But I help you to be higher than I could be, and then you pull me up even higher. So I was still gaining altitude by other people. That's
wonderful. What are some skills that students should start building now if they want to think about stepping into leadership roles later?
Well, as I mentioned, in 1998, I developed this compass. But the compass is incomplete. It's incomplete because what I did was I missed input from important groups. And I'm going to show you what I developed in my post, I guess it would be somewhere around 2006, 2008. I developed another acronym. I love acronyms.
This is how he remembers everything.
OMS. Thanks to Pauline Marois, my French is much improved. So human resources, operations, marketing, manufacturing, engineering, of course, and service center. Okay, so why is it different? Why is it different? Because in that model, the compass model, you don't get input from marketing where your product is being designed. So we develop aircraft. We don't make aircraft ourselves, we just make the engines for it. So where does this OEM want to operate, like Bombardier and de Havilland? Where do they want to operate? Then we go through human resources. How do we get the teams that have the skills to develop this engine for this aircraft? And of course, marketing, manufacturing, right? We spoke about marketing already, sorry, manufacturing. How are you going to make this? Yep. The engineering, we spoke about it because already on there. And the service center, when you get this engine back after it ran 10,000 hours in the field, what does it look like? So you have to complete the circle. You have to go back to the marketing guys and says, is this what you wanted? And then if it was not, get the engineering guys to fix it, or the operation guys to improve the manufacturing. So I had to expand my compass model to OMS, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't work in English, but it works in French. It works in French. So one lesson that I learned when we did the flight testing of the Gulfstream, I was asking the test pilots.
Wait. The flight testing of the Gulfstream.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. We built engines for the Gulfstream, right? The G600, 650, the engines. Then when they did the first flight, I was so impressed with the engines because I was part of that team. I wanted to know, how did the engines do? So we got a hold of the test pilots who actually flew the aircraft. And we brought them into our Mirabel Aerospace Center. That's still the name of it, yes? So MAC, we brought them to MAC, and I met them, and I was so happy. And I asked them, so how did the engines perform? And the pilot in command, he gave me a blank look like, what are you talking about? So I says, you flew the aircraft with our engines? He says, yes. I says, well, how did they perform? He looked at me, he says, well, I don't really know. So I thought, I went back to my old style. Yeah. What a effing idiot. I thought, how would you not know? This was back in the real voice. He says, well, Keppel, let me explain something to you. When you have a test aircraft that's going to go for its first flight, we go through a series of checklists. You, Pratt Whitney, talking to me now, you tested the engines at Mirabel. You go, you accelerate, decelerate, and all of the things. It works well. It doesn't leak oil, doesn't do anything that it's not supposed to do. Then we take it, we put it in the aircraft, we test it on the ground to make sure that the system works. Then we do some high-speed taxis, and if the engines work well, remember, we have an iPad with a series of screens on it. The engine is only one of them. If everything works well on the engine, back of the pack. They don't worry about it anymore. They worry about things that can go wrong, that they focus on. So he says, every time we push the throttle, the thrust was there, back of the pack. So I thought, that's a compliment, I guess. If you don't know how my engines are working, that's a compliment. Sure. So that's something that I learned. You know, that's, sorry, I just had to drop that line in there.
Yeah, and so I think this framework is super interesting in terms of thinking about skills, because again, if you were maybe you're in an undergraduate degree and you're thinking, I'm not actually sure what direction I want to take, you need to be building skills in all of these different kinds of categories. And I don't work in engineering. And so like for me, maybe this second M is programming or something like that, right? But this framework works in that like you need to understand and have some skills related to human resources and people, right? You need to have some skills and understand some components of operations in whatever you're working in. So I think that these frameworks are super interesting, and it's helpful to see how they've worked for you through your time at Pratt Whitney, how you've developed them. This is so great. So we'll talk about specialization in a moment, but can you talk a little bit about, and you did this a bit, but the role of failure or setbacks in your journey and how you kind of recover from them and what you learn from failure and setbacks?
We had failures.
Yeah.
We had many failures. But every failure in Pratt Whitney lingo was an opportunity to improve. They weren't failures. So when something did not work as per plan, you never got any hard language from the superiors. They would encourage you to go and dig in to what caused it. That allowed us to take some of the technical terms, and Sean can explain it better to me, Sean Bruno. We made a fishbone diagram, just like the fish bones. So anything that you had, you can actually detail all of the possible causes that may lead to that failure. And then you go through them one by one, and you improve it.
Yeah.
On a personal level, sometimes you go up against political aspirations of others, which is very difficult, and I call it underwater currents that can pull you down.
Yeah.
You have to be able to identify what they are and determine why is this being driven the way it is.
Yeah.
So you have to stand back and look to see what the end goal, the deliverable is, and who is driving what. Because you may be driving along this path and someone else may be pulling you on that path. And that becomes very difficult. So what we did is we understood what each and every director and vice president was driving, and then how we would affect their deliverable. So before we have any meetings, we used to get together the 4 teams, the major teams that we have. It means the engine center people, the service center people, the operations people, and the engineers. And we agreed, this is what we're going to do. What does it mean to you, to you, to you, to you? And make sure that your director and your VP agrees with the steps that we're going to make. Now, this was before the meeting. So we call it a pre-meeting meeting.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you clear all of the fluff off. And then when you go in the boardroom and you sit with these same VPs sitting there, they already know what you're going to say and what impact it has on them. So you have to clear the hurdles before you reach the hurdles. And then the things just sail right through. The last thing you want is to surprise somebody by saying, oh, I'm going to do this, and they're not aware of it. Then you get a backlash. Okay, so that's the first thing, the pre-meeting meetings.
Yeah.
Second thing is, the people who are in the room, you check to see what is their focus. So when we developed engines, we always built in growth capacity in them. So suppose you wanted an engine for 5,000 horsepower. We would develop an engine that was capable of delivering 5,500. We always have this 10% growth margin. We won't tell you about it, but it will be there. And then when you do your test flights and whatever, and you come back and you say that you would like more power, we will say, but you should have told me that when you developed it. And we can then charge more money for it, the stuff that we already had. So this is the way that we always second guessed the intended operators, whether we're going to fly, the manufacturers of the aircraft. You second guess them. You built the packages of cost So that if our VP of Finance would ask, what happens if you want 10% extra power? In the PowerPoint chart, you would unhide the slide that shows 10%. And they would never question you again because they know you thought about it. So so you always have to be in a position where you detect undercurrents to be able to answer them. And that requires a lot of skill from your team to develop that.
Yeah, so I think in terms of setbacks and anticipating challenges, having a good team, trust, collaboration, having like a structure for your team, and then anticipating what the kind of questions, what the pushback will be. Those are important
Those are
parts
good
of
things.
those
Now,
are good tactics.
I'm going to go through something that I only developed in the last year.
Yeah.
Right? I'm still developing new things.
Yeah.
I call them beans. Beans, like
Beans.
red beans,
Yeah.
yellow beans, and green beans.
Okay.
If you go to human resources, when you're making your team, and you have a team of 5 people,
Yeah.
right? And you happen to have 10 tasks to do. You make sure that these 5 people can span the complete breadth and width of these tasks. Red, yellow, green means that I don't like to do red tasks, but someone in your team is an expert at these red tasks.
Yeah.
Yellow means I can do it, but it's a real disaster for me to do it. Someone in the team is a specialist at these yellow tasks. Green ones is the ones that you can do, so you can do them yourself or farm them out to someone else. So as program manager, as a senior fellow, what I would do, I had a group of 12 people working for me directly. Each and every task had someone who was brilliant at it. So if it's red, yellow, green, I could just farm them out. Red, yellow, green for me. But
Okay.
to you,
Yeah.
it will be a green. But
I'm a green
I'll give you
bean.
I'm giving an example.
Yeah.
Budgeting.
Okay.
I know how to do it, but I hate doing it.
Love doing it.
There you go. So I would hire you, and
Yeah.
any budget tasks, up to you. I would tell you what I want, and I will use the people's name. Let's call Benjamin.
Yeah.
He would have the budget next morning, exactly as I wanted it. Now, what it requires you to do is that you must understand what went into that budget, so that when you go in front of the executives, you can explain to them exactly what your thinking is. I didn't do the work, but I understood it in full depth.
Yeah.
Same thing, budgeting, level 1 plans for when you're going to deliver engines, manufacturing plans, all of these, you have specialists who you can lean on. So to you, right, it looks like you really got your stuff together, but really it's the people that are under you
Yeah.
that have the exposure,
Yeah.
right?
So this is the lesson for, I'm like,
Can you relate to it?
Yes, I can relate to it. I manage people like in a nonprofit,
go.
and these are, you need to be having your team do the green beans. Like,
Red for you, green for
red
me.
for me, green
Green
for
for
you.
them, yeah.
Like, yes, I love it. So yes, these are great things to think about too. You're not going to necessarily start out managing people, but it's always nice to know, okay, this might be, my manager has an approach for facilitating our team and making sure that we're being successful, or hopefully they have an approach. You know, if your manager doesn't have an approach to this, maybe look for another manager. But an approach to help make sure that I'm going to be successful, that our team is successful, and they understand that their success is linked to to our success.
Exactly.
So, I love that.
Exactly.
That's so great.
All right.
I'm going to throw a curveball because I have a question here about specialization versus keeping a broader skill set. But I'm also curious if for you, it was equally as satisfying moving into management and overseeing and kind of, supervising people and directing tasks our way versus being kind of in the mix, playing with the engines, testing them, like breaking stuff and then pulling back, as you were talking about earlier. What was like more, I'm sure there's, both were enjoyable,
Well,
but
I have to draw another house.
Okay.
I have to draw another house. So I look at any company, doesn't matter.
Use red or black.
Well, I could do anyone, I just grab whatever is
Green
there.
was hard to see.
Right? This for me is a house. The green is hard to see. Yes, red. So this to me is a house. Walls, roof, walls. In the house, you have pillars. Those are your specialties. Right? I'm just going to draw a house with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pillars, because 5 fingers. Up the executives, they live up here. I'll give them different colors. I'll give them blue. The executives live up there. The CEO is on top. The project managers and fellows live just under. Okay, so what are you seeing when you come to a company? Doesn't matter which company, you can give it a name. What are you seeing? You see this house that you enter, right? That's the company. And you have these pillars, these specializations. But notice the specializations, they don't talk to each other, they just support. Who goes across running all over? It's the senior managers and fellows. They go across running all over. So you need specialists. You need the structure, the support that's got to be robust and rigid. But you need someone who can run across like little mice in the roof. I don't know, you live in the country, you have mice in your roof? I got mice in my roof. At night you can hear them running across. And my wife nudges me and she says, you better put some traps up there. But you can see them running across, right? The fellows, project managers. Because when the marketing guys go out, they can't come and talk to the individuals because you will get an answer only on dynamics. You will get an answer only on stress. You'll get an answer. We can't put that together. So you need to have good specialists and you need to have good generalists. Most likely, the generalists actually are the better specialists who can move across different levels. And that's how they created the senior fellows, because we can jump to any area in the company and be fully immersed.
Yeah.
It also works as a bonus to you. When I was working in China, I would go with one translator from marketing who spoke Mandarin very well, and I was able to speak on everything, whether it be grains of sand or whatever, across the full board. So only 2 people go. You didn't have to carry one from each group. So you need good generalists, but if you have to get the real work done and the engineering report signed, the specialist would have to do it. So you need both. You can't separate them. And in any organization, you will see that. You can go to McDonald's and see McDonald's, the hamburger people.
Yeah.
And they have all of their processes is very well defined.
Yeah.
If you were to go back to some of the quality work, you would see Deming, was one of the guys in the early 60s and 70s. He stated, if you could not map your process, you didn't understand what you were doing. So the generalists can go across and know what everyone is doing and the timing that they have.
Yeah.
So that's generalists, you need both.
Yes.
Specialists, you need both.
Terrific. Terrific. I love it. So will you tell us about your approach to mentoring? I'm sure that these acronyms and frameworks are a big piece of it. I feel like we're getting the deep dive mentor experience at the moment.
It's fine. My approach to mentoring is very simple. You do the work and I guide you, right? But you must tell me what's your 20-year plan, right? Where do you want to go? Coming back, where is your heart at? Where is your mind at? And what's in your book bag? If you can't tell me those answers, salut, that's it, that's all. I won't speak to you about that. If you can't tell me that, it's because you don't know what you're doing or what you want to do. You can't come to my office. Well, I don't have an office anymore, I'm retired. You can't phone me up and say, I want to be the VP. Well, it's good to be a VP, I'm sure, everybody wants to be a VP, but how are you going to get there?
Yeah.
So what I ask is for people who want to be mentored by me, is I ask them a very simple task. What did you do when you were 12 years old and you would like to continue doing that today? What did you do when you were 12 years old and would like to continue that today?
I dug around in the mud.
Well, I did exactly
I still
that.
do that.
We didn't have very much money. In fact, we didn't have any money. But I used to make airplanes from pieces of wood and from cedar trees with the little spinny things that you had. And I used to make airplanes with this, and they actually flew. Not by power, but by your hand.
Yeah.
And I was able to, the wasps, we would catch them, and it was a bit evil, but I would tie little strings to them to see how much string they can carry before they can't fly anymore. But then I would let them free. We didn't kill them. I just wanted to see, the bigger ones, how strong were they?
They didn't sting you?
Yes, they did, but it's part of the course of learning. It's all in learning. But the people that I mentor, I develop something very simple with them. You have to tell me, and I use my methodology as the way to go. You have to tell me on Sunday night, what are you going to do for the week? Right? Who has to deliver what at what date? So you are now operating as a fellow, and you have to know each one of your columns, what they have to deliver and when. Is it in this week? You plan that on a day-by-day basis. When I used to go into the office, I'd meet the director, and we would discuss on Monday morning at 6:15. That was my meeting time with him. We'd have coffee, and we'd spend 15 minutes discussing what had to be delivered that week, and I would never see him again for the rest of the week. Right? Because that's the interaction. He knew where I was, I knew where he was, but we didn't need to see each other. So I would like you, as someone who I mentor, so you're the mentee, you develop this astute ability to know what has to be done when and who's doing it. And then you map the people. So I know I came in at 6:15. So if I had to give you a hard time, I would set a meeting at 6:20 when you were not awake. Right? So you get to know your people. You knew when the designers come in, you knew when everybody came in, and you'd be first thing in the morning. If you came at 8:15, at 8:16, I'd be at your desk. Where is this thing? Do you know you have to deliver it on Wednesday or whatever date it is? Are you working on it? And all you have to do is to catch them one time, and you will never catch them again. Because that's the level of people that we hired at Pratt Whitney. They delivered.
Yeah.
And if they know you check,
Yeah.
they would make sure that your stuff was delivered first. Now, Pratt Whitney had something that we call MASC, modeling, analysis, simulation, and calculation. Keppel had something that he called MASC, muffins and soothing chats. Okay, now let me explain how it works. And I teach each of the people that I mentor to do this.
Yeah.
If I wanted something done in inspection, I would take muffins and coffee and go down there and just leave it for them. Being who they are, the first thing they will ask you is, why are you here? Why did you bring this? What do you want? I want nothing. I had a special test done. We got good results. Thanks to you, I got the data. Thank you very much. And just leave. 2 weeks pass, same thing. Muffins, coffee. Now you can talk to them because they see you, right? So you start talking to them. How's the wife? How's the family? How's the kids? And, what do you want? Nothing. I don't want anything. The third week, you show up with nothing. If they ask you, hey, Keppel, where are the muffins? You got them.
Yeah.
You hooked them. So when parts started coming in, right? If you see Keppel Bharath, who do you think gets first priority? Well, subconsciously, who do you think gets the first priority? Despite what the VP's list said, my name would just bubble up to the top. So you get this kind of response.
Yeah.
You can go in there and you ask guys to stay past the end of the shift just to finish something, and they'll do it. Why? Because that muffin was ingrained in their head. They had the MASC acronym
Yeah.
ingrained in their head.
Yeah.
So I teach my mentors to be like that, because people are very good if you get them to work with you to
Yeah.
do the tasks that the group wants to get done.
Yeah.
That's how we mentor people.
That's
You
right.
must be technically competent,
Yeah.
right? You have to be a driver.
Yeah.
You have to be autonomous.
Yeah.
But the people skills is where we're lacking. Now, unfortunately, during COVID, we lost the ability to interact in an office setting.
Bring muffins.
Right?
Yeah.
You couldn't really bring muffins to
Yeah.
someone over the phone. Well, you can stuff it through the phone, but it doesn't work. So I am not too sure how that was handled because I never worked during COVID. All of my time was working prior to COVID.
Right.
So I never worked during COVID, but I think you can develop some analogies, especially in today, this sort of post-COVID wave,
Yeah.
to make things happen. And I think some places the people are going back to the office, yes.
Yeah.
So you can reintegrate into this methodology of working.
Right. I like the muffins and small chats too because it's like working with
Icebreakers.
icebreakers, working with
yeah.
your mentees to kind of learn how they feel comfortable building relationships with the people they're
That's what it
working
is,
with.
yeah.
And I have brought many muffins and treats to people who do things for me. Like
There you go.
that
So you see,
extra.
you
I
can
agree,
mentor me.
I
You can mentor me
agree.
easily
Yeah,
because we
I'm
think the
like,
same.
I don't have a lot to thank you, but here's some popcorn. I think that's great. So sometimes folks are shy about reaching out to someone that they're interested in working with. And so we wanted to make sure to capture your advice and recommendations on how students who might feel intimidated, or even young professionals, who might feel intimidated about reaching out to potential mentors or networking beyond their comfort zone, like what kind of advice might you offer to those folks who might be a little nervous to?
This was one of the questions I had the most difficult time with. Because when I entered Pratt Whitney, I entered, as I said, as a junior engineer. I never applied for another job in Pratt Whitney. I don't know why, but I took the time to read the specs, as I mentioned, understand the processes, get to know the people. And I was able, I'll be sitting there doing my work, and I'll just get a tap on the shoulder. We need you to go and spend a few months working on this problem. And then I would just move. And then that group wanted to keep me. So I never really had to go and address people. Now, I did have to understand how people worked. So if you are hesitant to go out and meet people, I find the best way to do it is stoop to conquer. Right? Stoop to conquer. I really need your help to understand this. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm told that you are the expert in XYZ. XYZ. If you approach someone like that, immediately you told them that they are the experts. They are the GOATs, the greatest of all times, and that their input to you would benefit you a lot. Immediately you get their support. So that's something that you have to learn to do. Now, you can't go and give them a hard time and expect them to teach and help you. So you have to be able to stoop to conquer. Friedman wrote a book in 2005 called The World is Flat. What's happening today is that we used to have centers of excellence in Montreal or wherever, right? But today, you'll have centers of excellence around the world. So you will have the best programmers come from Bangalore. I don't know why, but it just happens to be this way. The cheapest manufacturing sources are no longer in Romania or China because we have all switched to artificial intelligence. It doesn't matter where the robots live. Right? They can be living right here in Boucherville, in Longueuil, or wherever. In fact, it'd be beneficial if they do that because electricity here is all green. Hydropower I consider to be green. I could be wrong. Some people disagree with me because of problems with land that was taken from the indigenous people. But if you were to consider burning coal to generate electricity or just getting it from sunlight, which is a good thing, it's green. Sunlight is green. So is hydro, it's green. So you can have a system where you have power green power made across the world. So the world is no longer a very mountainous place, it's very flat. So as a person who you mentor other people, your mentee may be living in a different time zone. So it becomes very difficult now to interact with them. But with the wonders of computers and telephones and sleep patterns, now I must admit, I have a sleep, it's not a disease, I don't think it's a disease. I go to bed at 11 and I get up at 4. And that's it for me. I don't need more than 5 hours sleep. I have a routine.
Yeah.
I got this going back to Trinidad. My uncle got up at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And he would drag you out of bed because at 10 o'clock, the sun was so hot you couldn't work.
Right.
So I developed the habit of getting up at 4 o'clock. I still get up at 4 o'clock. My wife doesn't allow me to do anything at 4 o'clock. So I have to lay in bed and think about things. And that's where most of the thought pattern. In fact, I keep a small pad just beside my bed so I can sketch things and draw things. And I'm allowed to get up at 6 o'clock to get out of bed. So I spent 2 hours just sitting there and looking at things, listening to the mice running upstairs in the attic. So we have to be able to go across the world in terms of time zones. So that's something else my mentees get.
Yeah.
Living in a different time zone.
And I think too, maybe for folks who are nervous, I mean, you are very interested in working with people who want a mentor. There are some expectations, right? But you're interested in them. You see yourself in community, and in kind of like your success is linked with theirs. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind for folks looking for a mentor, is that, you know, people who may be in the position to mentor are very interested in working with young people and helping to shape and influence them, and also be along for the ride. And I know my mentor working in botanic garden education, very niche, she's very interested in my path, and she worked me very hard when she was my boss.
What's wrong with that?
No, I know, well, no, there's nothing wrong with that. And I was very happy to do it because it really pushed the work. It made the work interesting. It made it good. People still kind of comment on the events, whatever, the things that we were doing together. So there's a long-lasting impact. And I know that she really wanted for me to see me succeed. So if you're feeling nervous about reaching out to someone, maybe you don't start by making a big ask like, will you be my mentor? But you have curiosity about them. You kind of, I think Keppel's given us some Easter eggs along the way of like, talk to them about what they're working on, get to know them first, and show them that you're interested in them, and like look for that interest in you before making that ask. But
you know that we do observe people, huh?
Yeah.
And I was very notorious to observe people as they walk.
Yeah.
I can tell you what kind of person you are by the way that you walk and address issues. If you are a person that's driven, or if you just go one step today, one step tomorrow, I know you're not driven.
Yeah.
But I have 6 criteria that I use to mentor. So can I write them down?
Yeah.
You gotta know.
So you have these 6 criteria. This is how your mentees. This is what your
well,
mentees do?
this is how they get developed.
Okay.
So you ever heard the song by ABBA called Mamma Mia?
Yes.
Right. So we start with M, me, and M plus $. Right? To allow you to have A, B, C, D, E, F. What is it? What does it mean? ABBA. Group from the 1970s made up a song called Mamma Mia. I couldn't remember these, so I made up my own song called Mamma Mima. So what is Mamma Mima? We first of all start with manpower, M-A, first M-A, manpower. Then materials, then methods, machines, money, Activity-based costing design enables flexibility. That's what A, B, C, D, E, F. So it says my brain is very small. I have a very small brain, so it's difficult for me to remember things. So I have to make up acronyms.
Yeah.
In manpower, the first one, there are 2 PCs.
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 What are PCs?
Personal
Yeah.
capital and personnel capital.
Okay.
Okay? So what is a personnel? The people that work for you. What is personnel capital? The way that you mentor them and the specializations that they get from this, the way that you allow them to be free to do what they want, develops them as people.
Yeah.
So your personnel are developed. When others, as I said, you always observed, when others looked at my personnel, me personally, developing my personnel, those people, who you think they would talk about to promote to the next managerial position? How you develop your team, they become stronger.
Yeah.
Other people want to come to work for you
Yeah.
because they want to get that sort of boost. So the personnel, I never had trouble with people. I would give you 3 years as a rotation. The first year you learn, the second year you apply, and the third year I would kick you out. Go somewhere else. But people were always on the lookout to see spare spots. So they would come in. So we developed a rotation, right? That's the personnel. The personnel side, when people talked about getting bonuses and raises and next programs they wanted people on, who do you think they picked? If they didn't know your name, why would they pick you? Or if they didn't know what you did to your personnel, why would they pick you? So that's how I never applied to a job. I would always be tapped on the shoulder and says, you know, go to Toronto and manage the plant in Toronto because it has a lot of trouble. And I would go and do it.
You say yes.
Well, yeah, because it's something that you want to do, because it's something new. You must always be learning.
Yeah.
I do have a triangle there. I can make it again. You always have to have triangles. You always have to have triangles. Life is built on triangles. You're either going up or you're going down. There is no flat spot. There's no flat spot. So if you're not learning, you are decaying,
Yeah.
right? That's my view. So that's what I tell the people that I mentor. If you're not learning, you are decaying. Make sure you stay on the learning side of the curve. When you feel that you reach the top and you start decaying, get out. That's year 3. Get out, go somewhere else where you slip back to the learning side. So I just gave you manpower. Machines, you must understand how things are made. Materials, you must understand the materials. Methods, you must understand the methods that are used to make things. Money, right? You have to make a profit. Even the people who are making wire hangers know that if they cost them more than a cent losses, they're not going to be in business for too long.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some country close to us are developing tariffs that they want to put on people. And they have not worked through what this means to the consumer.
Yeah.
And they say some other country, not close to us, will pay the tariffs. I don't know, I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I just want to make sure, as an American, I want to make sure you're not offended.
I don't feel attacked.
Some other people will pay the tariffs, not you. And people are very gullible. They believe this, some of them. But it doesn't make any sense. But that's not part of this speech. That's,
Right.
that's something else.
That's something else. Yeah.
But my people understand the money.
The money.
They understand the money.
Yeah.
They understand that when you make things in one part of the world and transport it to the other part of the world, when you have robotic cells, here where you want it, it's not cost effective. Environmentally, it's not the right thing to do. So we go through all of these kinds of things for the people I mentor. You know, I copy from Toyota because I studied the Toyota production system. They locate, center is where the head office is, and they locate everything within 1 hour drive
Okay.
of where they want to be.
Wow.
So in the morning at 4:30, if you got a problem, they're at your place
Yeah.
within 1 hour. And that's how I like to visualize the whole systems.
Yeah.
Structure. So that's how I mentor people. When you finish with me,
Yeah.
you know, you will understand everything about everything and how to fix everything.
And you'll keep learning.
And you keep learning. You always
Yeah.
stay on this side.
Yeah.
You always stay on this side.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, we're at our just the last two questions, and before we take your questions, and
Go ahead.
if you were 22 again,
Yeah.
and what advice would you give your 22-year-old self now?
You know, that's almost 50 years ago. Huh?
You don't have to count.
At 22, I was arrogant and a bit of a shit disturber.
Yeah.
And I used that to my benefit. Shit disturber for you guys is a technical term. Just want to make sure you understand that. I use that to my benefit up until a certain point. Because if you want to understand how robust your process is, break it, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I would like to ask you, right, as someone who's a couple of years younger, a few years, maybe a lot of years younger, how is that viewed today? Because we are generations apart. We are generations apart.
Yeah.
In my day, you did what the schoolmaster said, right?
Yeah.
I was caught cheating. Why? Because as the teacher was writing down the problems in math, I would just be writing down the answers, giving my paper and leave. But I never showed how I got there. So she thought I was just copying from the next person beside. So I was taken to the principal's office. And I told him, well, I don't need to write all of that stuff down. I just calculate it in my head. And he didn't believe me. So he made me do, as he was writing the problems, I was telling him the answer before he would finish. So he said, give this boy some additional work. How is that viewed today? We're not allowed to beat kids anymore.
No.
Right? We're not allowed to...
For the best.
Yeah, well, it's sometimes I think it's deserving, but that's another discussion for another day. How is a person that's a generation behind me, how do you think as a quote-unquote 22-year-old?
Yeah.
How do you, so you want your question?
Okay, well, I could say for myself at 22, I had just finished university, like my bachelor's degree, and I did not know what I wanted to do. And even if I was coming into your mentor program now and you said, show me your 20-year plan, I would be like, I don't have one. I guess I'll go. I think we are so like my trajectory has been, I think I started into my career, and most people wouldn't think you could get a career as doing environmental education, which is like you start out working at like camps and having school kids come during the week and teaching lessons, and they like sleep over and you have campfires and do whatever. And then I just kind of kept moving into this field, which usually involves at some point going into museums and that sort of thing, but I didn't know that that was an option. I had gotten this degree a bachelor's degree in ecology and conservation. I knew I loved those topics. I did not want to be a scientist at 22, and so I did not want to do a master's degree. I was like, I don't want to do school anymore. But so I tried a lot of things, and I think I wasn't a shit disturber, so maybe advice to my 22-year-old self is like, be a little bit more of a shit disturber. But I wasn't afraid to try things. I like took my stuff home and kind of had the luxury and privilege of like going and working at jobs where my housing or my food was taken care of, and so I could like work for 12 weeks on the coast of Maine and then like just save all the money because everything was paid for. And then I moved to the West Coast and I did a lot of bopping around, and that was awesome. My desire for a good salary did not match my parents' desire for me to have a good salary, and so that was a point of contention a lot. But at some point, and this is, I like that I did this for myself, but it's not an option for everyone. I was like, I understand you want me to come home and work a full-time job and make $28,000 a year. which my dad would be like, we just hired someone out of college and she's making $28,000 a year. So it was a while back, but like it's a good salary. And so anyway, I kind of just asked them to stop pressuring me so much for a few years on that end, so I could kind of figure out what I wanted to do. I tried a lot of different things in education, I would say, in my realm. And so, yeah, I think I would tell myself just be a little bit more, less of a pushover,
more aggressive.
more of a shit disturber.
Okay,
Yeah. But do less of whatever, whatever, less of a pushover, but stick with that, like trying new things. I think that really served me. But I then haven't worked in a place for 46 years. Was it? No, that's
41 years.
41
I've been
years at
retired
one
now for 5
company.
years, yeah.
Yeah, 41 years
Well,
at one company. So
People think that my career must have been very boring. It was not, because we were encouraged to fool around and find out.
right.
So we were at the leading edge of innovation.
Yeah.
And in some ways, when I look at Elon Musk and what he's doing with Tesla, it's a good thing, right? Now, let's separate his political aspirations from what he's doing with Tesla. It's a good thing because you have to be able to understand when things will break and then back away one step so that you don't fall off the edge of the cliff. And that tells you you're leading the charge.
Yeah. Yeah. Shall we just share what gives you hope? Will you share what gives you hope about the next generation of leaders coming out of Concordia, and then we'll see what questions there are?
Well, the people that I mentor now are 40 years behind me.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. If I ask them to do something like, create a chart, they'll immediately come back with an Excel spreadsheet with data and all of these kinds of things, because that's the way this generation thinks. I would grab a pen and start sketching things because that's just the way my brain is wired. But I look at my kids and you talk to them about doing anything and they immediately do it on their laptops. Whereas I just keep a pad beside. Now, the reason that I'm enthused is because they are able to understand things much quicker than I was able to do it because I did not have the tools. So I was asking them, I wonder what it costs to go from here to here when I was doing some activity-based counting. And my daughter gave me a chart. If you do it this way, it will cost this much. If you do it this way, it costs that much. Like within seconds, the information is there, and they are all very capable to use computers to generate things, right? Now, where I'm a little bit disheartened is the ideas for generation. You ask them a question, what would you do if? And there's a dead zone, right? Because they're not into that thinking outside the box. If they're in the box, they know exactly what to do and where to do it. But once stuff gets broken, they don't know what to do. And you see it, just changing subjects, going from aerospace to cars. If something is broken, they change the whole module. They never bothered to figure out exactly why is it not working, these internal modules. So it's a replacement of everything. The whole wiper motor, you throw it away and you put another one in. So this is the kind of things, because that is waste. Coming from an environmental point of view, it's waste. So I have a very happy concept of the tools that they bring to the table. Everything is thought of and done in Excel spreadsheet, Word, PowerPoint, you name it, bam, they do it, and it's right out of the box, looks good. But if you ask them to generate new ideas of what they would like, they seem to go, except if it's ringtones. They seem to have these phone things. They change their ringtones every other day. I don't know why. Oh, because it's fun.
Yeah.
Are you one of those?
No, but I think, what I kind of hear you saying is we need to hold space open for being imaginative and
Yes.
being good problem solvers, even though we're really there's a lot of
They're
real,
very sophisticated,
Yeah,
sophisticated technically.
yeah,
But I would like to see them develop new things, break things. Oh, we don't want to do that. It makes a mess. So what? You know, so this is something that I wrestle
Yeah,
with. Something
yeah.
that I wrestle with. But I think we're in good hands because I look at the caliber of engineers that are coming out and they can actually hit the street running,
That's awesome.
whereas we had to learn.
yeah,
You know, I'm exposed to many people, not only from Concordia, from McGill, from Carleton, from in Toronto. I worked with Ryerson,
yep,
and we have the ability that people may not know, the students may not know. We have spotters. What is a spotter? A spotter is something like Cameron Behadrian at Ryerson. He sees the students. So he knows that Keppel, he's useless, you know, doesn't want to do anything. That Tallie, she's good. So he knows who to keep an eye on. And we have programs where we hire in aerospace
Yeah.
some of the high potentials, high pots. And we bring them and we work them hard
yeah,
to see how they respond
Yeah.
in the culture that exists within the company. Now, this could be any company, if it's a GM, whoever. So then we can determine who are the best ones to seek to bring in. So even though you are still in school, you must realize that there are people looking at you. So this is the thing that you all should remember. People look at you. We have spotters. It used to be Dr. Hani Mustafa here at Concordia. I think he is retired now, but I've lost track of who are the ones we go to.
yeah,
You know?
right,
So we had people embedded, I think is the term that they
Scouts.
use. Scouts.
Yeah.
So we can tell
Yeah.
who the good ones are.
yeah,
And then they would be exposed to apply to
Right.
Pratt Whitney. And we do have a program of hiring students.
Yep.
So we can see how they operate in the environment,
right,
not in the classroom.
great.
That's
So
it.
cool.
So I am happy that the students, the caliber.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I want to open up the floor for questions, if folks have them or on Zoom, and yeah.
Yeah, if anyone on Zoom does have any questions, just pop those into the chat. We can read them out. Those of you here in the space, if you have a question, I'll just bring a microphone over. So we're here. Okay, we've got one over here.
Hi, so I do have a question well, not really a question, but advice for students who sort of have an imposter syndrome. So for
Who have a
myself,
what, sorry?
imposter syndrome. So feeling like you kind of don't belong in the field that you're in.
Or not good enough.
Yeah, or not good enough, yes. So for me, I'm in my third semester in mechanical engineering at Concordia. And this past semester, I've really struggled with imposter syndrome. First with the demographic, in my classes, looking around and, seeing predominantly white men. In my labs, some labs, I'm the only Black girl, the only person of color, and the only female. So it's been really hard for me. And also this past year, I started applying for internships and, starting to, take connecting with other people seriously. And I find that, I wasn't successful in finding an internship this summer, but I continue to try for the next semesters. But I just seem to struggle with the fact that I belong in this program. I always knew I wanted to be in mechanical engineering. I always knew that this is what I want to do with myself and my future. But, I feel like I'm in a point of my life where I'm starting to question myself. I'm starting to question, is this really what I want to do? Also, with failure, sometimes it's discouraging for me. I don't really have a mentor. I don't really, have too many resources or people to talk to, or, I don't really see too many engineers in my race or my gender. So, it tends to be a little bit hard. So what advice would you have for me or for people like me?
What's your name?
Ella.
Ella. Before Keppel starts, I would just say, that voice is saying, you know, like you might not be good enough, that's like talking to you, just tell her to be quiet. Okay, like, because that imposter syndrome, like, it's hard to get it to go away, but you kind of have to like intentionally be like, no, we're not, it's not your time. You like have, you know, time to think about, reflect, worry, but then like tell her it's enough, you're getting in my way. So that's like one thing. It's just, even though all of these things that you've shared are really important, they make finishing university really, really difficult, but like you don't need to let the imposter syndrome like be part of that. Like she doesn't need to be in your way. Yeah. And then as far as like finding your place.
Well, can I
Yeah.
jump in?
Yeah.
You came in a little bit late. I saw when you came in. It's okay. I don't mind. You can go back to look at the first few minutes. When I came from Trinidad in 1973, and I applied to go to Carleton to do engineering, and I was refused because I didn't have the mathematics. Okay. I went to Bell High School, and I did talk to the math teacher, and I asked her, is it possible to do 4 years of calculus in 1 year? And she told me it can be done, but it's difficult. Right? Are you up to the challenge? Am I up to the challenge? That's what she was asking me. So I told her, I says, let me have a look at it, and I will try. Right? Now, I have a saying that if your heart and your mind are aligned, and you have in your book bag, you see, I always carry my little book. Oh, someone took my book bag away, so but if your heart and mind are aligned, and you have the tools in your book bag, there is no stopping you. This person that you said to shut up, the imposter, you can tell that person to be quiet. No, it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. I did 4 years of calculus in 1 year, right? While working at Kmart, because I didn't have money, my mom didn't have much money, and I had to work. So essentially, working 40 hours a week, going to high school, and studying extra hours, it's what I wanted. So the question that I have for you, and don't answer now, think about it, is do you want to be an engineer? Now, I think you said yes. The tools you have in your toolbox, what are you missing, and how can you get them? Because if your heart and your mind are aligned and you have the tools to do it, there is no stopping you. This imposter will not raise his or her head. I don't think you can say it's a her. It's a his or her. Their head. Yeah, you got to get the right pronoun. Yeah, right head. And this has happened to me all through my life. When I went down to Windsor in 1978, I went to a job where I got instructions from across the border. There's nothing wrong with Detroit, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with Detroit. We got instructions from Detroit that we didn't understand, but we were told that's what you're going to do. I work for Chrysler. That's what you're going to do. And I realized that we would just not listen to. So I left because my heart and my mind was not aligned with the tools that I was given to work with. You need the three things. You need like a triangle: heart, mind, and toolbox, or your book bag. Right? So this is something that I would like to discuss after with you, to show you how to overcome these hurdles, because it's not the first hurdle you will meet. And if you turn away and walk away, you will always walk away. So turning away for me is not an answer. Is not an answer. How do you turn towards what's pushing you back and overcome it? And that's what I'd like to talk to you on a private basis after. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ella.
We did have a question on Zoom. I can read it.
Yes, go ahead.
A question from Shivam. How do I turn student leadership into real-world engineering leadership?
Student leadership from, like he's in school now? It's
I think that's what it means in terms of like using student leadership experiences, but how can you transform those into real-world leadership. Shivam, if you have any, you could turn on your microphone also if you would like, but if you have any other details, you could add them there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
Hi,
that's Shivam.
so I'm in like I'm leading student organizations at Concordia. So how do I turn that leadership experience into like real world engineering leadership? I'm leading like Space Concordia. We also have done events with C4 Space and also ECA, which is also a really big society at Concordia. So how do I turn that experience into real world experience?
I'll start again. I think that that is real world experience, and you are already learning and executing on organizing people together, organizing events, setting an agenda and meeting those objectives. I think those are all actually just like pretty regular skills that not everybody starts working on right away when they're in university. And so I think you should think of that already as real world experience, and you might think of the actual types of tasks that you do in these leadership roles and make sure that you have put them onto your resume as specific types of skills that you have started to work on. And then you might also reflect on how those skills line up with what you were looking at working on in the classroom or the lab. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Keppel.
Okay. I got a couple of examples that I'd like to share with you. When I was in high school, I used to clean out Kmart. And we used to run a machine that was a mop and broom and a vacuum. It had a spray nozzle on the bottom. And the guy who was training me says, you know, you should run it at 1 because then it takes you 8 hours to clean the whole store in Kmart. Now, what he didn't know is I wanted to study. The machine had 5 settings, so I put it on 5. And I was able to develop a process where I can crisscross Kmart in 2.5 hours. This allowed me to take my engineering classroom experience, draft it into the real world, clean the store as quickly as possible, and then I could study for 3 hours, get a couple hours sleep, get up in the morning at 6 o'clock, and finish the last bit of cleaning. Now, I know it's dishonest, but I still got the job done. I got paid for a task that I was supposed to do. I lasted 8 hours. I worked some on my time. I took a lunch break, slept, a long lunch break, and slept. So anything that you're doing, whether it be for the Carleton University Students Organization, which I was part of, I didn't come to Concordia, but I went to Carleton. Anything that you do, organization, you can turn that into real world experiences. If you want to host a seminar at Fourth Space, you have to contact people, you have to get things organized, you have to get speakers in, you have to respect the time. Anything that you're doing, you can turn it into real world experiences. So those are the 2 things I'd like to do, both of which I did because I was part of the Carleton University Students Organization. And we had guest speakers come in. We organized people to come in for interviews for 4th year. Because at that time at Carleton, we didn't have internships. So you worked in summers, and I worked at Kmart doing whatever I did. But at the end of the 4th year, almost at the end, we got people to come in and interview, and we had some of the professors groom us on how to interview, how to answer questions from the psychology department. Because you went to engineering and they'd all tell you just answer the bloody question, which is not the answer. The way you answer questions, and we got the psychologist, all of this I organized while part of the student group. Yeah. And we all got jobs. So my question, I turn it back to you, is what are you doing as part of the organization here? Define it, map it out as a process. If you can't map it as a process, you don't know what you're doing. Deming, reference.
Thank you.
Another question over here.
Hello, My name is Katrina Bruno. I'm Sean's daughter.
I know who you are.
And my question is more general in terms of a corporate entity, a company, and whatnot. When it comes to moving up in the corporate ladder, as you mentioned, you entered Pratt, but you never applied to any other positions within it. How did you know when it was time to start putting pressure, for example, on managers or working better with your peers in order to allow yourself to climb the corporate ladder?
Well, Ms. Bruno, I was very fortunate or unfortunate, depending on your point of view, to be someone who stuck out by my color, by my size, by the way which is a good thing, don't get me wrong. I was also a problem solver because I was lazy. Let me explain. If you work hard at solving things, right, and people, they see that, and then you document what you did, that's noticeable. So when you go home and they are behind closed doors, they will say, you see that Ms. Bruno, you see what she did there, you see what she did, you have to document it and advertise it. Don't document things that you cannot get credit for, because it's your work. Huh? If you're doing your master's, I think you're doing your master's, right? Yes? Undergrad. Okay, it's your other son, okay. Anything that you do, you document it, and you claim your stake on this thing. I give an example. When we were developing engines, everybody would do the calculations in a different way. And sure enough, the formula would push you towards an answer. But they got there by different paths. It's like going from here to Longueuil. You can go by the tunnel if you are crazy, or you can take the Jacatier Bridge, right? But you can get there. So we decided to develop standard work, best practices. We advertised that we were doing it, we mapped it out, and we monitored it and pushed it into paper. Well, now it's electronic, right? We took advantage of it. Now, you may not realize that in any organization that you are in, people look at you to see how you work, what sort of work, I call it the drive that you have, the determination that you have. They look at you. So always be aware of that someone is looking. When time comes for promotions, right, we developed something at Pratt Whitney called Team 3, Team 2, Team 1. Team 1s are the presidents, the vice presidents. Team 2 is the directors. Team 3 is the future managers. Team 4 is the up-and-comers, right? If we see you as being good, take a note of it, what you did, and we discuss it, the managerial positions, unknown to you. Then one day we'll come and we tap you on your shoulder. Can you be prepared to make a presentation on what you have done in this company in the last X period of time on this specific date? Then you will realize, oh, I guess someone was looking at me. Now, you are visible, you are a minority in the world, in this world. Just keep that as something that you can use to your benefit, your advantage. Believe you me, when I hear some people say that Kamala Harris is a DEI appointee, they have not studied what she has done, her capacity and her potential to do other things. When we make statements about people in these closed doors, I come armed. If I'm talking about myself, right, or a other person, what have they done? Here's the proof, here's the documentation. So it's all fact-based. It's not, well, I really like her and she makes good muffins, which is a good thing if you can make good muffins, don't get me wrong. But you always go with fact-based and be aware that people look at what you are doing. No matter where you are, you could be working at Kmart cleaning out. They knew what I did because every time they came in the morning, the store was spick and span. They knew what I did. So your potential lies in your head, not in anybody else's head. And it's up to you to drive yourself to go higher, and other people observe. Because there are people, like we have spotters at the university, there are people at Pratt Whitney in human resources, look to see who are the next up-and-coming potential managers. Now, once they touch you on the shoulder, be prepared to work even harder, because you're going to get pulled into an area that you don't know anything about. So how do you counteract that? The first thing you do is you understand what this department delivers or this team delivers. You read all of the specs, all the procedures, all of the work, the WIMS, work instruction manuals, everything about that. And you become the expert. What you will find is this, in this new department, a lot of the people who are there before you never read the specs, don't know what they're doing, right? Simon Sinek says, you must know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. You get those three things down, you suddenly become the greatest of all times. So that's how I handled my non-application for jobs. People realize no matter where you put him, he comes up swimming. And I understand all the specs. I was sent to procurement for 4 years. I had no clue what they did down there. After the first year, I knew exactly what they did and what I had to fix. And that's how you get ahead. You can't change who you are, but you can change where you go. Good. That's it.
I think, yeah, keep track of what you're working on and how it's making an impact, right? Like, you're going to have to keep a document that's like, I'm awesome, here's my awesome work. Like, to encourage yourself, but also to like show your receipts, because we do have to show extra receipts, you know, like, so just keep track of it. Be proud of it. Yeah.
Be proud of it. By the way, it works, huh? It works. People know what you're doing, especially if you document it. Others will come and ask you, what did you do to get this done and where can I find it? So you keep a log, you give it to them, and the next thing you know, your name starts being branded around. Good.
We have time for one more question, if there is one.
No?
Okay.
Are we good? Time is, it's actually almost 4
Yeah,
o'clock.
we're almost there. So I just want to say thank you. This was so fun.
Excellent.
I have learned so much. I've been like reflecting while you're sharing. I think just putting all of your
my funny little,
frameworks
yeah.
into context for my own work. It's been really interesting. I'm really glad that we got to meet through the Black Perspectives office and that you could come and share your journey with us. I'm really grateful to you, Keppel. Thank you so much.
No problem, no
And
problem.
to you all for joining today and on Zoom and to the fourth space. So, is there someone from the National Society of Black Engineers? Oh, that's you guys. Do you want to say anything about what you guys are doing? There are our co-sponsors here, so, or whatever. You're going to say anything about the club?
Yes, so I'm the VP events, and I'm here with my other.
My name is Samuel, and I'm going to be Director of Finance for next semester. Yeah.
So basically what we're doing right now, because it's the end of the semester, so we're just preparing for the new semester. Frosh is happening, so we're going to start, making sure NSB is like more well known, because we're going to, there's a lot of Black people who still don't know about NSB, so making sure we're well known, making sure we have events, networking events to support the Black engineers at Concordia.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Jan, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tallie. Thank you, Keppel. Thank you all for coming in. Thank you to those of you joining us on Zoom and online.